Hey guys, welcome to this episode of the Deep End Podcast with Pastor Steve Ryan and Kyle Headley. Just a little PSA warning. If my voice sounds a little scratchy, it's from last night. We had a service and I got to preach. So when I talk for 45 minutes, my vocal cords get a little messed up.
Great sermon last night. Surface pressure.
Oh, thank you, Pastor.
So good. We had 99 people show up.
We got 99 problems, but a pastor ain't one.
Ain't one yet.
No, I'm just
Think
kidding.
about this. It's like the parable. He leaves the 99 to go find the one. We should have found one more to
Well,
make an even 100.
There was a couple people who kind of left, or a couple people that came in a little late. So
I could have missed the
depending on
count.
when the count was done would alter, you know.
So we're going to say we were at triple digits.
Yeah,
last
we were
night.
at 101.
We were
for your
just under
information.
500 last night.
Just under 500, scraping the bar. Next thing you know, we're elevation Hemet over here.
Yeah, baby.
So that's what we were going to talk about today. Was just do a little recap of last night and just kind of flow, see where the Holy Spirit takes today's conversation. But before we get started, today is actually my pastor's 60th birthday. He hit the 6-0.
The boys on the back nine. Yeah.
How does it feel to be, in that the last quarter?
You know, I think I was a little bit depressed leading up to. I don't know if it was depressed, but a little bit lackadaisical leading up to it, not looking forward to it. But man, I got up this morning and I was like, man, I'm energized because I'm like, I've made it 60 years. I was telling Sierra because I got up this morning about 5 after 5, and I got up and started doing laundry and running the dishwasher and all that while Suzanne and the girls were still sleeping. But I was telling Sierra when I was on drugs, because I didn't get saved until right at the age of 21, my favorite movie was Scarface with Al Pacino. You know, he was a drug distributor.
That movie is so iconic that I don't know if I've ever actually watched it all the way through, but everyone knows, say hello to my little friend.
Say
Like, even
hello
if
to
you've
my
never
little-
watched it.
Yeah. Christian, non-Christian, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. But I'm not joking when I say this. My whole thing when I was about 18, 19, especially when I got on meth and all that, was to live a fast 40 years. And I looked up to that character in Scarface. And then all of a sudden, I ran into Jesus Christ.
Now, think about this for a second. You wanted to, and I know you met Jesus in your early 20s and all that, but you wanted to live a quick 40 years. If I do the math correctly, you didn't have Sierra till you were like 43.
43.
Wouldn't you say that your life almost didn't begin until you had kids, if you think about that?
Yeah,
for a
I
second?
married Suzanne. I was 37, I think, when we actually got married. Maybe 36. And then, Sierra was born at 43 and Cheyenne when I was 46.
So you wanted to live a fast 40 years, and at your 40-year mark, more or less, God gave you a renewed reason to live.
And we know 40 in the Bible can mark it's a generation.
I didn't know that, but you're so good at the numbers in
Well,
the Bible.
I've heard that many times by other preachers, and it's like 40 years is a generation. Jesus spent 40 days in the desert, which is like a testing. And I think there's other places.
Noah, didn't it rain for 40 days and 40 nights?
I think it did.
Yeah.
I think it did. I can't remember. But 40 has significance. So for me, I think looking at 60, and I haven't even looked up 60, but you know how it is. You can find any number and go, oh, yeah, it matches. But I think for 60, I'm like, man, I've made it to 60.
I think that's impressive.
Yeah, it was kind of because you know yourself, the hardest person to live with is yourself.
Yeah.
You know, you've lived with Kyle for 32 years. You just turned 32. And, 32 years is a long time. And I think I've really been hard on me. I'm hoping the last third of my life I'm not. But I woke up this morning more inspired because I do have 2 teenage daughters and a younger wife, and I don't want to be a downer.
Right.
And sometimes I find myself leaning too much into aging. And what I need to do is run as hard and as fast as I can for the kingdom. And when I pass, because no Christian ever dies, you just transfer.
Yeah.
But whenever I'm supposed to transfer, God knows that. I don't have to worry about it.
Right.
And I think when I waste time thinking about it, then I'm not doing anything productive or what I could be doing. Does that make sense?
No, yeah. I think it's embracing the moment that you're in now instead of looking for the next moment.
Well, your sermon last night, because we're talking about your sermon last night, you said what happened leading up to your sermon over the last few weeks, because you knew about 2-3 weeks in advance that you were teaching on August 7th. It got moved up. So what happened?
Just an onslaught of attacks. You know, our car getting hit. I had to go to the ER. Our phones almost got turned off. Like, just the onslaught of attack after attack after attack after attack. You know, and I made that joke last night where if a lot of pastors or preachers will tell you, like, when you're gonna teach on something, God will make sure that you're well versed in knowing what you're going to teach on. So if you're going to teach on peace, your peace will be tested. If you're going to teach on worship, you know, like he's going to try to make you dive into worship more, like whatever it is. And at least in my experience, anytime I was going to teach on a subject, I get tested in that area. So I made that joke last night that my next sermon is going to be titled "What to Do with a Plethora of Money." And so hopefully God tests me in that area.
Maybe you should name it, "What would God have me do with no money? Then He'll give you a lot of money."
Oh,
you
reverse psychology on God.
You think it worked? But honestly, you were supposed to preach on August 21st, right?
Yeah.
The day that I asked you to do it on the 7th, what happened that afternoon?
That's when my car got hit outside of my house.
Not because of anything you did.
No, it was just parked.
You and your family were sitting in your house.
I was literally playing football.
And then God goes, "I have a gift for you. It's a little different." And it's not that we know God doesn't cause accidents, but God knows the beginning from the end. He knew it was going to happen. And what ended up happening with the lady that ran into you guys?
She was really shaken up. I mean, anytime you hit a car the way she did, her car was front axle snapped. Like,
I seen the picture.
Horrible.
Yeah,
her car
was bad.
Looked a lot worse than our car. Our car, all the damage was underneath. So on the surface, if you look at our car, it actually doesn't look like it's that damaged. It looks like it has like a scrape on it on the bumper, but the rear control arm, the suspension, and all that kind of like snapped up and stuff. But
which can cause a car to be totaled,
it's totaled,
even if you don't see the damage. Yeah,
and actually was just on the phone with the total loss adjuster this morning. But
are you expecting to get money?
Not a lot, but yeah, blessing.
Lord, let's believe it's going to be a lot. Plethora. Only Kyle would do. What's plethora mean?
It means an abundance.
An abundance. There we go.
An over amount. More than you need.
Kyle's had a lot of college, so he's using these big words.
Plethora just means more than you need.
Yeah, I like that.
If you go to the Vegas buffet, there's a plethora of food. You're not going to be able to eat it all.
I'm going to Jersey Mike's today.
There's not a plethora there.
They have a 15-inch though sandwich. It's pretty.
But you
good.
won't even eat that.
Yeah, to take me a couple seconds.
Will you buy it and then just chop it up and eat it at a time? That's what. No.
Does. I'll eat it all in one setting.
Really?
Yeah. It's the only time I really kind of binge.
Teresa could go to Subway and ask them to cut the sandwich in 4s, and she'll eat one and then eat another in a couple hours and then have the other. I'm like, 12-inch sub, that's going down for lunch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I forgot what I was saying though.
I threw you off.
No, it's okay.
You know what though? When I used to smoke pot, and just for the record, I haven't smoked marijuana since 1989. If you're trying to calculate, I got saved in 85, was clean for a couple of years, and then went on 2 binges before getting clean for good in 89. But man, when I smoked pot, I loved binging on anything that was food. And any ex-pot smokers out there, you understand what I'm saying.
So they had, I remember. So the lady came over to our door and she was freaking out a little bit.
Yeah, that's right.
And Teresa and I just stopped and we prayed for her and we were like, hey, like, listen.
Did that blow her mind?
Oh yeah. Older lady.
Yeah.
And she was freaking out. I was like, look, our car's replaceable. Your car's replaceable. You aren't. And so when it comes down, because what had happened was somebody was trying to pass in the lane. And so we kind of live on a double wide street, but it's only one lane. And so when somebody was trying to pass on the opposite side, she felt like she had no time. It was either she was going to hit him head on or she was going to hit our parked car. And I told her, look, 10 out of 10 times, if you have to hit someone head on or you need to hit my car, because
the head on could be way more devastating.
That's fatality waiting to happen. I said, at the end of the day, your life, and she was an older lady. She was in like her 70s. Like at the end of the day, your life is way more important than anything materialistic that I own, And so it was just a ministry opportunity. We got to talking about church and
you got to spend some time with her because of her having to wait.
She had to wait, and she didn't really have a lot. Her daughter ended up showing up a little bit later, but she doesn't have a lot of people, you know? So we're like, no, we'll sit out here. We'll wait for your tow truck. We'll wait for, like, we'll hang out with you. Like, we got our water. And she was like, you guys are acting so cool about this. And da-da-da. And we're like, it's just a car, you know? Now, deep down in my spirit, I was like, what am I going to do, man? That's our family vehicle. Like, now all we have is my truck. There's 5 of us. There's 3 seats. Math ain't mathing here, you know? But Sharisa honestly never lost sight of God's got it. She was like, don't worry, babe. Like, God's got it. Don't worry, babe. God's got it. And so God got it.
See, what I was thinking of, because you hit on it in the sermon last night, and when you had me come back up at the end last night, and I didn't know you were going to do that, but I was thinking about, and it eventually said, when Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane, Gethsemane means oil press. If you remember, Jesus says, God, if it's possible, let this cup pass from me. He knew what the cup of, I forget what they call it, but he knew the crucifixion was coming. He may not completely understood it in his humanity, but he was still fully God. He knew why he was here. But then he goes, not my will be done, but your will be done. And we know also that he sweat drops of blood, and they say that can only happen when you're under such pressure and stress that your capillaries, is that right?
I guess.
I think they burst, and your sweat actually is then mixed with blood. So here you guys are sitting in your house, and then next thing you know, there's an accident out front. This lady, you have an opportunity that you choose to minister to someone. It's kind of like, Lord, if it's possible, let this cup pass from me, but not my will be done, but your will be done. And I think what Jesus was showing us is that when you're under pressure, it's so easy to go. I mean, people forget Jesus in his humanity had a choice.
Yeah.
He could have said no. But he was so aligned with the Father that he's going, I don't want my will. I mean, think about if you knew. Jesus grew up around crucifixion. He knew what crucifixion was.
Yeah.
He's seen people get crucified. But knowing that you're going to get crucified for something you've never done wrong, but at the moment of crucifixion, God would put sin on you that you never committed, and that then he, for the first time in history, would have to turn away from you. It's crazy when you think about it. Pressure, pressure, pressure. So I think, like for you last night, to be able to share to the people that, hey, man, we've been going through some stuff, but you were still there. Yeah. That to me is when, because you kept saying, and you can clarify, you kept saying, man, I'm excited about what
the promotion is. Because the whole sermon, if I could summarize it in a sentence, is that pressure isn't bad. Pressure is good. Pressure is not something to be scared of. Pressure is something to be excited about. Because when you're going through it, there's something that God needs you to prove in that or learn in that's going to elevate you once you're out of it. You know what I mean? And so, for example, you know, and I've only recently come to grips with this because you and Pastor Suzanne and my wife have been speaking so positive into my life and encouraging into my life about my calling. But you know, I want to be a pastor. That's what I want to be. Well, what kind of pastor would I be had all this happen to me and I just called you a couple days and said, "Hey, I'm not going to do it. I need you to take over for me."
And people do that.
And people
not just in ministry, jobs in general.
All the time.
Yeah.
What would I have proven to God at that moment? Kyle's not ready. Not that maybe I wouldn't be ready down the line or something, but I would have shown what I would have shown to God in that moment is he can't handle the pressure right now, and that's okay. I'm going to bring him back a little bit. We're going to, step back and keep working a little bit, But what I proved to God was like, hey, the devil can throw whatever he wants at me, but I'm going to have your will in my life. Your will is going to be the number one thing in my life. And that's my whole point, was that when the pressure was on, I wanted to perform. I wanted to prove. I wanted to show God that I'm serious about it. I'm about it.
That you're still going to do it.
Yeah. And we should be like that in all areas of life. Like even in construction, there was some times where there was pressure where I was looking at the amount of concrete that was poured and how much time it's taken us and doing quick math and realizing, hey, we've already been here for 8 hours, but I'm pretty sure we're going to be here for 6 more hours. That's a lot of pressure. But your willingness to say, hey, guys, we got 6 more hours. We're going to do this. Let's go. Here's a little trick as far as the union goes. Once your 8 hours are up, you don't have to stay. They can't hold you they can't hold you hostage.
Mm.
That's part of your union rights. And so, and they can't legally fire you for saying, I don't want to work overtime. Now, construction companies are a little sideways. You know, they'll find ways to punish you that aren't firing you if you ain't willing to work a little overtime or stuff like that. But you don't have to work overtime if you don't want to. But I never turned down the opportunity to show that I could perform in pressure, you know.
Because if you do that, what happens?
You become a foreman at age 23.
And people give you more and more opportunities,
more
because
power.
They know you can handle the
pressure.
The pressure. I was looking up this. So you probably know this story. Let's see, the book is okay. There was a time when Paul and Barnabas was going to go on a mission trip, and you know about the division they had over Mark.
Yeah.
And what happened was, it says here that it just before they were to leave on a journey, Mark kind of abandoned the mission, and Paul was really upset. And they say when you go back and look in the original language, and when him and Barnabas had the disagreement, it was extremely heated. I mean, almost probably like yelling at each other. Well, Barnabas, probably to his benefit, was willing to take Mark in and kind of groom him. And eventually, Paul and Mark, things were reconciled. And I believe it's the same, John Mark is what they call him, is the same Mark that wrote the Gospel of Mark. But it shows you maybe Mark at the time just wasn't ready.
Wasn't there. A lot of times when we're in a position, we expect everyone to be there with us.
Yes.
And people have a path. They have things that they have to learn.
So as leaders, shepherds, pastors, you know, and we know there's a fivefold ministry, but you operate in a pastoral. That's what I operate in. Pastor Bob does, Pastor Susan, and we all may have some other gifts in there as well. But pastors you got to be hard and soft on sheep. Mm-hmm. We know a shepherd, as a sheep starts to go out of the way, what do? They typically...
You got to hook them and bring them back.
Yeah, you got to hit them a little bit.
Send that sheepdog after them.
Yeah, you've got to correct them. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the whole point, is that when you walk with Christ, you're losing your life to find it renewed in Him. Mm-hmm. It's not your life anymore. It's His. That's why when He would tell people to follow Him, they would just drop everything. And then what happens, and I think we all do the same thing. We get saved, we drop everything, and then along the way we're like, whoa. Hold on, Jesus. This is a little what do you mean you don't want me to fornicate anymore?
Yeah, what?
What do you want me to tithe?
What?
Tithe? Come on, stop it.
Shouldn't be drinking.
Yeah,
what?
Come on. Shouldn't be drinking. Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh, no fun.
Yeah, I know.
I have some of my most fun on Thursday nights, in the booth with, Evan and Devon and Sharisa, and we're just in there fellowshipping and talking, and there's no alcohol, there's no weed, there's no, I mean, obviously there's sexual attraction to my wife.
Yeah.
But there's nothing in there that is a crutch to us. There's no gossip or anything. We're just talking to each other, learning about each other.
You're having fun,
enjoying each other's time. And it's such a healthy environment to be in.
How high did you feel last night under the anointing preaching that sermon? I
felt like I was very on last night. Yeah. I felt like I was very into.
So how does that feel?
It's the best feeling in the world. It's very light.
You almost feel like you're not even in the same.
I almost felt like I was sitting with you watching me preach. Yeah. If that makes sense.
No, it's Pastor Jurgen always says it. We get weird in Christianity because if you use supernatural in Christianity, we go, oh yeah, God's supernatural, can do supernatural things and blessings. If you use paranormal, people freak out. Well, paranormal just means on another level.
Yeah. Outside of normal.
If when you read Ephesians 6, we don't fight flesh and blood, but principalities and powers. Well, we can't see them.
Yeah.
Now, we may see them operate through people, but ultimately we don't see those principalities and powers. So they're in a different place. They're in the paranormal, the supernatural. And I think something happens when you're preaching, especially because you had spent a lot of time marinating it and allowing God to work on you and what you were studying, and you've been studying for a long time. Man, when that anointing hits, you go into a different realm.
Yeah. I even told you, when was it that you texted me? Was it Monday night or Tuesday night? You texted me something and you're like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, I'm just sitting here staring at my sermon. It's missing something. I got.
Oh, that's right. We was talking about the Stephen Furtick sermon.
Yeah. And you're like, you're going to get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I had my whole sermon done for maybe 3 weeks. But even up until that point, I kept reading it and reading it and reading it and reading it. And I was like, it's missing something. It's missing something. I don't know. And I don't know if I ever figured out what it was missing, to be honest. What I did doing that night was flipping my closing. So the whole cheetah thing was actually more in the middle of the
cheetah
sermon,
thing was really good. I like
made that the end of the sermon.
And that's a real photo.
That's a real photo.
Yeah. Did that cheetah ever run?
I hope not, because that kind of takes away. But you know what?
But even then, though, how cool would it have been if that cheetah like waited 10 seconds? He's like, yeah, I'll probably take
all right,
off.
I'll go. No, what's funny is greyhounds are actually faster than cheetahs. So
really,
in a context, my sermon could actually go one or two ways, and I'm trying to figure out a way to keep the cheetah thing, but also incorporate this if I ever teach this sermon again. Cheetahs can only sustain their top speed for 100 yards or so. So they got that quick acceleration. A greyhound who's about 15 miles per hour slower can run at their top speed for like miles at a time. So 40-yard dash, cheetah's going to smoke you all the time, you know, but a mile run, greyhound's going to get them because they have the endurance. I remember in the beginning of the sermon, I talked about how pressure teaches you endurance. And so I want to figure out a way how I can kind of keep the cheetah point about how when you're a cheetah, you don't have to run with greyhounds to prove you're a cheetah, but also talk about the power of the endurance that the greyhound has, you know. And actually who came up, I knew that, I just didn't really think about putting it in my sermon. Who actually came up to me and told me I should add that in my sermon was Gay.
Really?
She came up to me after the service.
Gay Smead and her husband
Gay
Larry.
And Larry, yeah.
Yeah.
She came up to me after the service and was like, I really thought you were going to go this way with the greyhound cheetah thing. She's like, you caught me way off guard because she knew about the endurance thing of the greyhound.
Greyhounds are faster?
Well, they're not faster top speed, but they're faster over a duration.
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
That's
like it's like me and you.
Yeah.
Like I'm pretty sure I'll beat you in a 40-yard dash. I'm pretty quick and fast.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you're gonna run a mile way before I'm done with a mile, even at 60 years old. No, even at 60 years old.
Maybe.
No,
maybe.
You will.
My knees are a little bit different
I think if
now.
we got on a treadmill and said, okay,
I love walking on treadmills.
We'll see who can hit a mile first. I think you would hit a mile first.
Yeah.
Because I still do it like I did, like how I played football. And so this is how I always ran a mile my whole life. I sprint the 120 yards, and then I walk that curve, catch my breath, and then full sprint that 120 yards.
I'm probably, because I never really, I couldn't even tell you last time I took a day off from working out, just because I love to work out. But I'm not a crazy, like I'll go, like yesterday I went home after working until noon because we come back for the service at night, and I did about 30 to 35 minutes on the treadmill. And some nights through the week I'll do planks, and usually on Friday I go to the gym and work out on weights and stuff like that. But I love working out. It brings me peace.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like you talking about the ocean last night.
Yeah, it's your place.
Yeah.
You hear from God there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because you brought that up, you know, everyone in the room, like, what is your place? Yours is the beach. Yours is in the ocean. Mine's in the gym, man. I love to work out. It's probably next to finding Christ as my Savior or Him finding me, being married to Susanna. And I mean, working out is like, it's been a companion.
Yeah.
I mean, like literally, like no matter where I've moved, and I've lived all over the place, everywhere I go, I can work out.
Well, especially the type of working out you like to do.
Yeah.
Because you can always go for a walk. So even if a gym isn't around, you could just go outside and walk a few blocks or jog a few blocks, and it's not a weird thing.
Now, I'll tell you something that would tie in with that. When I was in the magazine business, me and my dad went on a business trip to New York. This would have been 1994, probably 93. And we stayed at a hotel called the Drake Hotel. And I'd never been to New York. And I think we were there 4 days. And really old hotel, but they didn't have a gym, which was insane to me. But they had stairs, like these old wooden stairs and it went up to like I think about 65 stories.
Oh my gosh, that is
So-
that is a beast on your legs.
So I don't know that I went all the way up, but I would go several up, and then come. But you can just imagine people were probably in their rooms going, "What the heck
yeah,
is
this
going
guy's
on?"
on some good
It-
stuff.
Great work, great workout. But yeah, that's the great thing about it. If you're someone that likes to walk or run or do that, you can do it anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a young buck and my muscles were important to me, and it was hard to get into the gym, but I was working construction, and it was funny because all the guys would tell me like, "Oh, that's not gonna last. You ain't gonna do that forever." And I'd be like, "Yeah, right." But like if I would get 5-gallon buckets of water that I'd have to walk across the job site, I'd be doing like shoulder shrugs with them while I was holding them, or I'd be like doing curls with bags of concrete while I was transporting materials and stuff like that. It's just because, like you said, you could get your workout in anywhere
Anywhere you want.
you want.
By the way, I got to correct myself. The Drake Hotel had 21 floors.
That's still,
Maybe it felt like 65.
that's still beast. So 21
still-
stores is about 210. As if they were up to code, is about 210 feet. The reason why I know that is because I worked on the Vincent Thomas Bridge in Long Beach, the
Yeah.
retrofitting that sits 240 feet above water.
Wow.
And one time, when we were up there, the elevator
ways
went.
up.
Oh, you should look at a picture of the Vincent Thomas Bridge.
Mm.
It's sketchy. But one time when we were up there, the elevator broke, and so we had to use the scaffolding staircase for like a week to go up and down, and it would take a good amount of time to walk up 20 flights of stairs. Yep, that's it. And so
Where's
I was
that at?
in Long Beach and San Pedro. So one side is Long Beach, the other side is San Pedro, and I would be hanging over the water on a suspended scaffold.
No way, man.
And
That there, your boy would not be operating under pressure. I'd be going, I'm quitting. I'm going to work in a magazine.
I'll show
business.
you a couple pictures when we're done of me hanging off the side of it.
Oh, dang, look at that. Is
Yeah.
that it?
Yeah. So I was underneath that, chipping out. What happens is there's so much, humidity in the air
Yeah.
that the concrete and the asphalt sucks it in and it hits the rebar, and the rebar starts to rust. Well, if too many places rust, then the concrete and the asphalt isn't holding on to anything, and it'll just start falling apart, and cars are driving. So eventually, if that happens, the whole thing is just going to go like that.
Oof.
So what I had to do was underneath it, saw cut and chip out areas that were showing erosion, pull the rebar out, epoxy new rebar in, and then pour concrete back, all while the bridge is still.
So let me
Going.
ask you this. I'd be curious about this. I was just thinking as you were talking. So a bridge like that, because you obviously have the things that go into the water.
I don't think so. I
do they
think
not-
that bridge
are-
is suspended from bay to bay.
So it would
Maybe.
So even the ground, even if you're not being secured in the water by any kind of like poles or stanch or whatever that you guys call them, how do you know how sturdy that ground is?
So columns.
Yeah, columns.
So if you're gonna lay columns in the water, like how they do in, and they're all over the place, but think like a pier. That's probably the easiest. Well, a lot of times they do logs, but concrete columns. So I think like the Staten Island Bridge or the bridge in San Diego on Coronado.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Coronado Bridge has columns in the water. They get like this big metal cylinder, which is actually what I got stuck in and almost died, and they drill it down into the water
To
Well,
where they get to the floor of
to
the
where
water.
they get to sturdiness, and then they suck all the ocean water out of it and let it dry. So then it's sitting in there, and there's no water inside of it, and it's just water around it.
That's
And then
kinda cool.
Once you do that, you can drop a rebar cage in there, and then you just pump concrete and concrete and concrete and concrete and concrete into it, and then you let that dry. And then they take the metal cylinder off, and then now you have your column that's like, whatever you see, it's probably like 40, 50 feet submerged into the ground, not the water, but actual
So when you
base.
work on, let's just say overpasses, let's say the 91 freeway or the 15 freeway, how deep do those go?
Like 20, 30 feet
Yeah.
underneath wherever you see them, usually.
Because we do know on occasion sinkholes happen.
Yeah, it can happen. It could definitely
Yes.
happen.
I always think when I'm going over something, because I know they have that one, it's not new anymore, but the one that with the I think it's the 215 into the 91, you know how it has now goes up?
My brother
like the-
built that.
Really?
Mhm.
Yeah. I think it's in Riverside.
Yeah, my brother did all that. The 60, 215, 91 expansion
Yeah.
in probably was like 2005 when they retrofitted all that. Yeah, my brother was the general foreman on that job. Washington Obayashi was the name of the company.
Wow. I always think it's so weird because I get up on top of that and I'm like, what if an earthquake hit right now?
Oh, that's actually a pretty safe place to be.
Really?
Because they build them with tension relief.
Hmm.
So if you stand on that bridge, when you feel it moving, you almost feel like you're surfing when you stand on the bridge. It makes it really hard to work because you have to have a certain kind of equilibrium and balance. You get used to it over time.
Yeah.
But those freeways, they're moving. They're jiving and jiving and bouncing and yeah.
It reminds me of the bridge over in Old Town Temecula. I know it's small.
I built that one.
Did you really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I did all the custom rock work, all the stamped concrete around it. That's one of my favorite jobs I've ever built.
In that one, because I used to get my hair cut over there, so I would take the girls when they were younger, and they would stand in the middle, and you know how one car can go across, and you can feel
it bouncing.
Yeah.
That's
pretty cool.
That's actually one of my favorite jobs I've ever. Smaller bridge compared to what I mean. You see
when was that built?
Bridge, 2012, 2014, something like that.
I thought it was a lot older than that.
Well, they had a bridge there, but we came in, tore it out, and put a new one.
So is that area ever flooded?
Yeah,
because you know
the
they
basin.
Yeah.
I lost a couple of days of work that were shut down because there was too much water because we had to be in there with lifts to work underneath the bridge.
Wow,
to patch
because that's a
and stuff
deep
like
aqueduct.
Yeah,
how far does that thing run?
A long way. I think it goes all the way to the ocean.
Really?
Yeah, I think because it like cuts into the
that's crazy.
Cuts into like the mountains and stuff. Yeah.
Wow, you talk about pressure. Think about when you're putting something into a mountain and just trusting that that's going to hold up over time. The pressure of the earth and just all of it.
Yeah.
I think every time I go to a theme park, I go, man, we're such trusting people.
See, I won't ride roller coasters unless they're Disneyland.
Yeah.
Because that's how trusting I am. I've worked at Disneyland, and I'm telling you, every night they got people with wrenches, sockets, walking the rides and making sure every piece of equipment is bolted down, everything. They got people inspecting rides every night.
You'd have to have that, right?
And I don't know. I don't think Six Flags and Knott's Berry Farm have that. Have you seen that picture of it was like at Six Flags and a dad like walked up to the person and was like, you can't look at it. And there was like one of the copings that would hold two pipes together was loose and the other pipe was sitting like this. He's like, you can't have people riding that ride. Look at that. Like that needs to be fixed. And so they shut the ride down. But you're talking about like just some random dad who probably is some sort of mechanic or construction worker to notice that. But he shouldn't have to notice that. You know what I mean? Like,
the worker's like, sir,
sir,
we're a theme park.
You know,
don't worry about it.
Knott's Berry Farm, like Ghost Rider. I know some of those planks are treated to look that way, but I don't know if all of them
They look pretty old,
They look pretty beat up. You know, when's the last time those were replaced? I trust Disneyland in those regards. I don't really trust a lot of other companies in those regards.
Hey, I can tell you my 60-year-old frame, it don't hold up like it used to.
Ghost Rider's rough. When I get off of Ghost Rider,
man.
I feel like I've been in a fist fight.
I know.
I feel like my body's hurt. And I don't have a lot of fighting time left in my life. You know, I probably got a good 30 more seconds of fighting in my life.
Yeah.
And I'm saving that for Kalea's boyfriend.
Oh, there you go.
You know what I mean? I got to say.
Shout out to Cleo's boyfriend, future husband.
I need to add another 30 seconds because I got Honey Ray. So I got a minute of fighting left in my life. 30 seconds.
Kalei is going to get you prepared for Honey Ray.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Kenai, he's going to find him a really
beautiful
Mama.
Mama's got to worry about that, you know.
He's in love with your wife right now, so you don't have to worry about him
He told
for a while.
He told us the other day, he says, Daddy, or he was talking to me and Teresa. He's like, when I have a wife, the only thing I want her to be is beautiful like mommy and love Star Wars.
Wow.
He's like, I'm just asking God for those.
I like
things.
that. That's the simple things in life.
He's like, I just ask God. He even said that because we always tell him like, ask God for what you want in your spouse. Talk to God about it, you know. And he's like, I just want him to be beautiful or her to be beautiful like mommy, and I want her to love Star Wars. And I was like, all right.
If you really think about it, in your marriage, because you and Sharisa probably like watching a lot of the same things. You like playing video games. There is, I mean, obviously there's some differences, but really when it comes down to it, it's like we're getting ready to go see a movie. Our whole family loves movies.
Yeah.
Not always the same movie, but most of the time.
Yeah. Well, that's always been mine and Sharice's philosophy. So a lot of Sharisa wasn't always a huge video gamer. She would play like Mario Brothers or whatever, but she wasn't like into video games. And what we learned early on in our marriage, like a lot of women would get mad at their husband for being into video games. Be like, you're wasting time on that when you could be paying attention to me, yada, yada, yada. And what we learned early on in our marriage was like, I would much rather him be home with me enjoying his video games than needing to go out with his buddies or go to the bar or be out and doing stuff, you know, to find his peace and his solace or whatever. And so what she figured out was, if I insert myself into what he likes to do, then we can do it together, and I can get my fulfillment of spending time with him while he gets his fulfillment of playing his game. So eventually it turned into, and I was never a big, huge TV person. I enjoyed movies, and I would watch mostly sports. Like, I would maybe watch TV here and there, like Saturday morning cartoons. I still love Saturday morning cartoons, stuff like that. Yeah. But I wasn't like, I need to find this series and like, oh boy, I'm into this series. I was never really like that, but Sharissa was. And so what we learned was, she really enjoys playing video games, and I really enjoy watching TV now. Like, cool. I like to sit down and just turn on a show and watch 3 or 4 episodes, you know, and just kind of melt. And so we learned that if we can take interest in each other's hobbies, then each of us could be fulfilled with the attention and the personal time that we need, while the other one still fulfills with what they need at the same time.
No, I think it's cool. You know, I know we're probably getting closer to wrapping up, but I was thinking about this story because at the end of the day, you and Sharissa decided that at the beginning, she may not have been into video games at the beginning, or you into series or movies or whatever that she was into, but because you were into each other, you then sought out the other things. It cost you something. It cost you time. It cost you investment things. So I was reading a story. It was either yesterday or today, and you probably know this story. David in the Old Testament chose to do a census. And if you read the story, it actually says Satan caused David to do it. David was advised not to do it. You know the story? Mm-mm. So why do you think God wouldn't want David to do a census?
Probably because whatever he was going to learn in it was something that was going to discourage him to do what God wanted him to do.
Exactly, because if you count people, you can think you have something more than you do. Mm-hmm. I think David wanted to know, how many warriors do I have? How many fighting men do I have? But God was basically saying to David, you need to trust me. David went on to do the census, even though he had some advisors going, don't do this. God got very angry. So God gave him 3 options. And 2 of the options would have had David fall into the hands of men or his enemy. And the other one would be fallen into the hands of God. So he said, God, I choose to fall into your hands. And thousands of people lost their life. Mm-hmm. David eventually went to make an offering. He goes to a guy, I think you say the name like Aruna, and he had a threshing floor. David goes to the threshing floor, and he goes, I want to purchase this threshing floor so I can give an offering to God. I can sacrifice. And Aruna, because he respected David. David was the king. He bowed before him and he goes, I'm going to give it to you. And David goes, I'll never take it. I will only pay for it because I won't take something that has cost me nothing. Mm. And I think that's the whole thing with you, with Sharissa, or Sharissa with you, or you with your kids, or you with your sermon last night, or wanting to be a pastor. It's got to cost you something. Mm-hmm. And when you're under pressure, it's going to cost you something. It's going to cost you self. Because when God puts you under pressure, he wants to see, are you willing to trust me? You know, it's like money.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have to have a bank ledger, and we got to keep up with money, or if you run a business, you got to do all that stuff. But if I trust so much in money, and I go, man, if I just count this money over here, like at church, we ain't got to worry about anything. Yeah. And God's like, oh, yeah, but I have a lot more of that if you trust me.
Yeah.
If you trust me, you're going to realize it ain't about money. Money's just a source. God, you remember when Jesus told one of the disciples they needed to pay taxes, and he had them go down and they opened,
go fish. Yeah.
And they opened the mouth of a fish, and there's a coin in it. It's like Jesus going, listen, if I need to put money in the the mouth of a fish, that's pretty good. Fish of a mouth. Didn't you have something last night? You said overcomers or something.
Yeah, I said God has overcomer or something like that. God has already overcome that.
We're on a podcast. We can make up any words we want.
That's actually Sharissa's favorite part of the sermon last night. She's like, the way you flowed off of that,
I know, that was
so
good. Yeah, you were rolling. But see, when you're under the anointing, you can do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the end of the day, if Jesus can put a coin in the fish of the mouth. I did it again.
The fish of a mouth. I
Fish
like
of
it.
the mouth.
Hey,
Yo,
maybe
yo, yo,
that's-
yo.
Maybe that's a sermon. Maybe you're going to be preached the fish of the mouth and figure that out.
I always said I was LWR, man, little white rapper. I'm like Slim Shady right now, but I can't get my words right. But yeah, you think about he's controlling a fish that somehow got a coin in its mouth. And then he tells the disciple, hey, go down and
Go ahead and go get that. I made a deposit.
It's
I made a deposit a couple weeks ago. Can
no,
you go
I mean,
withdraw
how
that for
cool
me?
is that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable. And I think when you start to realize, and you talked about Erste, what's on the other side of the pressure, and when you understand the blessings on the other side, you're like, oh, it was worth it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get ready to close, but I wanted to feed this little story, I guess, or whatever, to you, and see if you think I was in the right or if I'm in the wrong. Okay. So I got somebody that got upset at me because they wanted to talk about the Paris Olympics from a youth pastor perspective, right? So they approached this conversation with, "You're a youth pastor, da 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 da," and their biggest thing was the representation of the Last Supper. And they actually got upset at me because I wasn't offended by it. Now, let me tell you why I'm not offended by it. To me, and I might be having a creative mindset here, they weren't mocking God. To me, they were mocking Michelangelo. That depiction that we all look at as the Last Supper is painted in the 1600s. Now, we know the Last Supper happened in the Bible, but who's to say it looked like that? And so, in my opinion, and this is just the way I choose to look at it, they're mocking Michelangelo, and I think that's who painted it. And I really don't care about Michelangelo. Am I in the right or am I in the wrong to have that mindset in regards to that particular thing?
Well, a couple things that come to my mind, and hopefully this answers it. Jesus says, if they hate me, they'll hate you.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're dealing with people that aren't Christians, they're going to hate you for reasons that they don't even know. But then Jesus flips it and says, you need to bless your enemies. Bless those who curse you. Pray for them, things like that. So I say all that to say, I think a lot of things we get offended by, God's not offended by at all. Because,
I don't think so.
because he's God.
Mm-hmm.
And he knows, Jesus understands who he is. It goes back once again. We were talking about this the other day, and me and Suzanne talked about it the other night. When Pontius Pilate says to Jesus, you know I have the power to take your life.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus, beaten, says, you would have no power over me unless it was given to you from above. The one that turned me over to you has the greater sin. So Jesus was saying, you don't have any power.
You can't do nothing.
No. So the people on that bridge with their little Last Supper thing,
It's whatever, right?
you know who I actually felt sorry for? Them.
Yeah. I felt sorry for them because they were exposing themselves and they're taking a lot of heat. And I feel sorry for the news anchors and the reporters that were forced to cover it. Those are the people that I feel sorry for.
There's a story of can we have a few more minutes? Let me look this up real quick. But
So in hindsight,
you keep talking.
While you look that up, more or less, you kind of agree with me. It's a silly thing to be offended by because, like you said, God's not offended by it, you know? Probably one of my favorite things about last night was just talking about the pressure of the world, and despite what the stock market looks like, what the government looks like we could spend all day fear-ridding ourselves watching CNN and Fox News and ABC and projecting the downfall of America, the downfall of all of this. And that's some pressure, but I think God is going to work all that out anyways. And if you keep your stocks in the stock market, that's cool, but I keep my stocks in heaven. And so I make investments according to where God tells me to invest.
I thought that was good when you mentioned that last night.
And so, although I would like to, if God ever blesses me with some money, I would like to start a little real estate empire, buy a couple pieces of property, open up some businesses, rent them out or something. That'd be cool.
Because you would like to, you're using other gifts. You
Yeah.
kind of have a gift to do things like that. Right?
I think so.
Now, would you want to do that?
I think that'd be cool. Like, I mean, ideally, I want to pastor, but I think Pastor Jurgen, who says having multi streams of income is important in your life, you know, and all you're really doing is allowing God to use multiple outlets to bless you, and you can use your outlets to bless other people. And so, like, there's a lot of Christians who want to start businesses, you know, so why not have, if you own a piece of property, why not have a Christian bakery? Why not have a Christian skate shop? Why not have a Christian restaurant all in that same little piece of property?
No, it's cool. Well, because we're meant to be down here to take territory.
Yeah.
The enemy, when Adam and Eve fell, we know that they were cast out of the garden at that point, and God told them to go and multiply. Now, it was going to be hard. He said, you'll do it by the sweat of your brow, because now the ground was cursed because of sin.
Right.
But we're supposed to redeem things.
But imagine you had a little like Walmart shopping center that you knew every single store was owned by a Christian owner. There's a bakery in there. There's a grocery store in there. There's a Christian liquor store that just doesn't sell alcohol. It has all your chips and your soda and your, you know, all those kind of things that you need. Like, I guess that would be called a convenience store, you know?
Yeah, that's good.
There's a Christian toy store, like a Staples or something, like a small Staples, like that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? I guarantee you more Christians would be willing to go into that shopping center to spend their money. Because look how many people shop at Hobby Lobby for the sake.
I was getting ready to say that.
For the sake of it being Hobby Lobby.
How many do you think? Tons.
A lot.
Because it's Christian and what in and out, right?
Yeah, in and out.
Let's see if I can find this story. Okay, there was a king named Belshazzar and this reminds me of the people on the bridge. I hope this makes sense. So Belshazzar thought he was God and kind of bragged about it. It's a really interesting story. And then some of this is going to not make sense, but just listen. It says, God is saying to him, you're going to be weighed in the balance. So he uses these words, and one of the words is M-E-N-E, but it says, God has numbered the days of your reign and brought it to an end. And then it says tekel. It's like T-E-K-E-L. You have been weighed on the scales and found wanting. And then the last one's P-E-R-E-S. Your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and the Persians. A finger had written on the wall. This is the finger of God. This is happening. Think about us sitting in this room right now, and all of a sudden the finger of God starts to write.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It even says, I'm not at this part right now, but it says Belshazzar was so scared that it was almost like it's like someone.
Seen a ghost?
Yes, yeah. Like that. Then it says, then at Belshazzar's command, Daniel was clothed in purple. A gold chain was placed around his neck, and he is proclaimed the third highest ruler in the kingdom. That very night, Belshazzar, king of the Babylonians, was slain. So he brags, and less than like a week later, he's dead. So how I look at these people on the bridge, I ain't saying God's going to kill them, but they're already dead spiritually until they have a relationship with Christ, and hopefully they all get saved.
Yeah.
But when you think you're God and then real power shows up, God will put you in your place. And I think for me, I go, you know, there's the Belshazzars along the way. Like we have a lot of people in politics right now that think they have power. God's looking down going.
It's like the best basketball player at LA Fitness is only good until he steps on a collegiate court.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, this is what it looks like.
Well, Michael Jordan can't play in the NBA anymore. He was great, but he's not great anymore.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point. Things end. Times change. People change. So for me, I look at that on the Paris Olympics, and in 5 minutes, something else will happen, and people go, "Oh my God, I'm mocked. I feel like we're being mocked." And
like the stock market crashing.
Yeah, it's always the next thing.
God, have you forsaken us? Oh my God.
Yeah. Did you still love your wife and kids when the stock market crashed?
Yeah, I didn't. Okay, like what? For people who live paycheck to paycheck, that doesn't mean anything, anyways.
No. My mom used to always say, she'd be like, she calls me Stevie, even at 60. And you know, my mom called today because you were sitting in the office with me. But my mom's like, Stevie, did you see the stock market crash? And I go, Mom, you don't own any stocks.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like for people like me, you, average people, you know, we do good.
Yeah.
It's not like we're poor.
Yeah.
That means nothing to us.
Yeah. I feel bad for the people in the stock market, but at the end of the day, it's not going to change my life.
Actually, you know what I wanted to do was like go sell a kidney and take $20,000 and start investing in things.
Buy them stocks when they're low, man.
When it crashed.
Yeah, you want it to crash. Yeah. So, no, you're 100% right. Good sermon, by the way. Again,
thank you, Pastor. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We know today was more of a casual conversation. We hope you guys got something out of it. As always, you can email us at dpcitypod@gmail.com. And happy birthday to our fearless pastor, Pastor Steve. And we look forward to seeing you guys later and hearing from you. So peace out.